Welcome to Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee, Padres beat writer for the Union-Tribune. Ryan Finley, sports editor of the Union-Tribune. He joins me, or I join him. I'm in Sacramento. Later, I will be in West Sacramento, where the Padres will play the A's for 3 games. Just spent a delightful time in Chicago, chilly Chicago. Ryan, this is one of those days where it feels a lot better for Padres fans. For the Padres, to a large extent, based on what happened yesterday, was not a great weekend in Chicago.
No, it was not. Padres lose 2 of 3. They salvage yesterday's game, but the way they did it, Kevin, and this is where I'd like to start today, I think gives fans some reason to be encouraged. While they didn't play particularly well, it was another comeback victory. This is the 3rd in 10 games for this team so far this season. A lot of the traits that last year's team had seem to have carried over into 2025, and I think yesterday was a great example. Kevin, take me through some of the key moments in yesterday's games and some of the players who really stepped up.
Yeah, I think that you nailed it because like they didn't play great, and it was in a way a little bit of a carryover from the previous 2 days. But then also they did get like enough big hits, and they've done something else. They did it through last year, and now they've done it a few times this year. They were 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position. That can turn into a very disappointing loss. But a lot of times for the Padres, it is like they flood the market. They just get on so much. Eventually, you got to score, right?
Right.
They put the ball in play. They make things happen. A bouncy single by Xander Bogaerts scores a run. Obviously, they get help from an error that should have ended the 9th inning. That ends up being bringing in the winning run. So like the way that they are able to do this and the fact that they've done it so often, like it doesn't negate, they want to clean up some of the sloppiness, but it is like this team will a fair amount of the time find a way to win. And that is something I think that's been proved. It's not just been 1 year. It's not been a half a year. It's, now bled into this year where they're playing that kind of baseball. Got to give credit. Luis Arraez kept getting on. He was 4 for 5. I think he's 10 for 23 since starting the season, 0 for 16. Got to give credit to Logan Gillespie, who comes in, Ryan, the craziest first inning that – and you don't want to ever say when you're covering a sport where every team plays 162 games for the last 50 plus years and the sport's been around for, 150 years, you don't ever want to just go off and say that was the craziest first inning ever. Because you're probably wrong. And I would be wrong if I said it about this first inning probably. But, 8 walks, 2 balks to the same batter by the same pitcher, brings in 2 runs, the Bucs do. The Padres did a ball out of the infield and scored 3 times. Jake Cronenworth got hit by a pitch. There was a pitching change. There were 79 pitches thrown between 3 pitchers. It was absolute insanity. And then it even got a little wilder from there, or, it kept going. So it was really just a wild, wild day. And I think that the way, because it was wild, because they came back, it wasn't just like, okay, they salvaged a win. It was, I feel like they were acknowledging that like it was bigger than that. Now, look, that's the beauty and also the challenge of baseball. Now you got another day.
Right. And not to oversimplify things, Kevin, because again, judging a season by how you do an individual series is probably not fair. Some teams gauge a season in 10-game chunks, in month-long chunks. Like there's whatever, but good teams do the sweeping and good teams don't get swept. And to avoid a sweep against a Cubs team that I'm not sure was playing particularly well anyway, to me, that's very big, at least early on in April, and could keep maybe what's the right word? Tailspin. Maybe from happening with this club that had played so well in the first week.
I think that you're right in that the way that they play prevents tailspins for the most part, because you can eke out a win. Look, Saturday was the Cubs' 5th straight victory. Their first 3 were against the A's. So here, actually. So the A's have not won in their new to them ballpark, which is a minor league ballpark, which has been turned into sort of a major league ballpark. We'll see today. But what the Cubs do is, man, they make pitchers work. That's for sure. 23 walks issued by Padres pitchers. I think it was 7, 8, and 8. So I think 8 in back-to-back days. Or I'm sorry, that adds up to 23. Check me on the math. So I think the Cubs are a good team. I think they're well managed. You saw a lot of similarities between how Craig Counsell handles things and presses the action. So I think that it was really, again, you and I try to preach, and we will several times since that was the 10th game of the year, about how long the season is. But I'm agreeing with you that I think that that's emblematic of why the Padres can be a playoff team, is how they are able to, win games like that, how they do keep fighting. I forget, I wrote about it last year, like the amount of times, even in losses, that they would have like the tying run on in the ninth. And that happened, I believe, on Saturday as well. And so they just, they play shilt ball.
Yeah, and you wrote about that in today's Padres Daily. A quick aside and a shameless plug. The Padres Daily is free to sign up. Go to our website, sign up for it. You'll get an email every morning from Kevin Acee, most mornings, during the season, from Kevin Acee, with more information about the Padres and about the inner workings of the Padres than you ever thought could be delivered for free to your inbox. So please do that. Kevin, a quick reality check here. They won yesterday, yes. Winning whitewashes some things, notably the fact that their starting pitching was horrendous in this last series. Again, it's early. They've taken 2 full turns through the rotation, through 10 games. Can we draw any conclusions from both the good and the bad here in the first 10 games?
I don't know that we can. But this topic is absolutely pertinent, because I guess now we've seen sort of, let's see, two decent starts, or maybe a not so great and a good one from Dylan Cease, not so great and a good one from Michael King, a good one and a not so great from Randy Vasquez, an excellent one and a terrible one from Nick Pivetta, an okay one and one of the worst that you could ever see a starter have from Kyle Hart. I don't know what to draw from that. Look, Kyle Hart, anybody who kind of has watched him, who watched him in spring training, who watched him in the first game, said, and then watched the Cubs for 2 days, said, this could be a tough one. They're going to make him find the strike zone. And Kyle Hart is a good pitcher who has to live on the edges of the strike zone. And so he better be on. And guess what? He wasn't. And man, the Cubs obviously made him wait, or they waited and made him work. Made him work a lot, but not for very long.
No, they did not. And again, just things, to me, it's the walks more than anything. A really easy way to have bad innings turned into disastrous innings is to put people on base. And, you saw that from, Pivetta a little bit. You see it from Hart. To me, those are the 2 guys we know the least about, just kind of because they haven't been Padres. But, to me, those are causes for concern. You're not going to last very long in a big league baseball game if you're walking guys.
So that's why I'm really looking forward to both of their next starts, and Nick Pivetta in particular. Like, man, it was that proverbial like one pitch away, but the Cubs don't give you that one pitch. Nick Pivetta works all over with his other stuff, and then a fastball at the top of the zone that guys swing at, or just above the zone that guys swing at, and it seems like it's harder than his 94 miles an hour, and the Cubs weren't swinging, so there was no out for him.
Right.
And so I'm not saying he was as on as he was his first start, but I'll point out one thing. The Cubs chased at a 67% rate. They swung at 2/3 of the pitches Nick Pivetta threw outside the zone.
Wow.
I'm sorry, that was the Braves. I think I said the Cubs. The Braves.
Yes.
The Cubs, barely a quarter of the pitches outside the zone, and virtually none at the top of the zone where Nick, will have to live when he's trying to end at bats. That's a huge difference. Huge. Like it's remarkable how much the Braves were free swinging and then how much the Cubs were not.
Right. The Padres could get, maybe the whole Kyle Hart conversation becomes moot if Yu Darvish continues to progress in his recovery, you had a note in today's Padres Daily about Yu Darvish is now playing catch from 150 feet, correct?
Yes, and generally that's like, oh, well, gosh, he could be off a mound by the middle of the week. We don't know, and it seemed to me that the Padres don't know that it is a real slow play with him. So could be Moot or Kyle Hart or someone else could be in the rotation for another 2 months.
Right. Or Matt Waldron could be the guy, right?
Well, yes, and I'm not sure. We've been unable to get kind of an answer on where Waldron is at. He had not thrown as of last week, so that's going to be a while with the oblique. The longer you're down, the longer it takes you to come back. So
Sure.
I think Stephen Kolek had a good start down there. It's a little early for me to be like looking. I mean, again, 2 starts for these guys. Right. Kyle Hart was a serviceable, more than serviceable, number 5 quality starter in his first start. Randy Vasquez pitched 6 shutout innings in his first start, right? I'm looking forward to their next starts. Now, Randy Vasquez pitches Wednesday in what evidently is something of a bandbox, 12 home runs in 3 games at Sutter Health Park here. So we'll see.
Yep. And we'll get into Sacramento and the A's here in just a minute. I do want to ask you, though, something about Yuli Gurriel. This is a guy who's batting .077. The expectation was never for him to be a guy who put this team on his shoulders, right? But to me, this is a concerning start. And, as somebody who has a little bit of Nelson Cruz PTSD from a few years ago, you wonder a little bit, right? He had a big hit on opening day and has done pretty much nothing since. How much rope are they going to give this guy? Given that they've got Tyler Wade and now Eggy Rosario in AAA and ready
Connor
to go.
Joe, Oscar Gonzalez, Tirso Ornelas. That's a great question. And you would also say the same maybe about Jason Hayward. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say May 1st is too early. I can't tell you. I'd be surprised if it's sooner than that. So that was always the case. It's something that, tried to caution as these guys were placed on the roster at the start of the season is like, yeah, because if they're not, they're gone. They had really good springs. The Padres have to find out whether that was real. And you give a certain amount of time. And I think it's longer than, is it 12 at bats for Yuli Gurriel? Yeah. Is it the same for Jason Hayward? Maybe a little more. I think you give it a little longer than that, but things don't look good. So it's an absolutely valid question.
Right. And there's a difference between this year and past years too. AAA El Paso has real players ready to help.
Great point. I think that we all need to, and this could be a lesson in life, by the way, from Uncle Kevin. If you came in, if you were shocked, if you thought it was a joke that Yuli Gurriel was on the roster, then you're losing your mind right now, understandably, because we all look at things with a bias. Read a book on Stoicism. Everybody looks through the lens of their preconceived notions. If you are Yuli Gurriel's biggest fan, you're like, hey, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. The Padres have to live somewhere in the middle, right?
Right.
If you have a preconceived notion about somebody, it doesn't mean you're wrong, by the way. You may very well be right, and you could be proved right based on what happens when Yuli Gurriel is released in 2 weeks or something.
Right.
But you got to, maybe consider that the Padres maybe know what they're doing. That's one thing that always amuses me, that we all are always second guessing them. They won 93 games last year based on the results. They're 8-2 based on the choices that they have made. So maybe, I'm not saying that you were saying this because it is an absolutely valid question. Believe me, I'm asking the same questions about these players. How long do they get? But I think now's too soon. But I'm not saying it's like too soon.
Right. The Padres long ago stopped giving away scholarships, right? This is a competitive team that expects to play its best 26 guys. And there's a giant front office that I'm sure is debating, at least in some sense right now, if they have to make a move, who the next guy up would be. And I think, fortunately for the organization, for the first time in a long time, you can look especially at outfielder depth there and say they have some guys who could help. Guys with big league experience, even somebody like an Eggy Rosario, they couldn't say enough nice things about him after they DFA'd him, right? Then he signed back with the club. There are some players here who could really contribute if they're called on down the road.
That's where you go, okay, if you guys love Eggy so much and he's a right-handed hitter who kills left-handed hit pitching, how long are you going to give Yuli Gurriel?
Right.
Now, the other caution is that it's always really easy to say, well, if Connor Joe came up or Eggy Rosario came up, they'd be so much better than Yuli Gurriel. Well, right. I guess at this point, anybody who could go better than 1 for 13 or whatever would be better. But you know what I'm saying? There's always a fix that's a theory down in El Paso, right? And you got to remember how many times that actually works out, right?
Right. And this is not a Yuli Gurriel problem, too. This could be a Kyle Hart problem, right?
This could be a Jason Hayward problem.
Right. This is not to put it all on Yuli Gurriel, but he's the most glaring example here of, in a small sample size, he's not doing particularly well.
And then everybody will say that was, hey, Connor Joe should be on this team. And then Connor Joe comes up and he does what the Padres certainly hope he does. Hey, they'd love to be proved wrong if they have to, cut ties with Jason Hayward and Connor Joe comes up and he hits 250 and, play some decent defense all over, at all the positions that he can play and is a consistent bat for them. That'd be great. But like you were proved right because you thought Connor Joe should play. Well, the reality was Connor Joe had options to go down, right? He can be sent back and forth. And Yuli Gurriel and Jason Hayward, do not. So it's kind of like on your team or not on your team. And the Padres had to find out. Happens all the time. Now, your points that you're making are like, okay, there are these guys that are down there. So there is a little bit more of a sense of urgency, I think, for Jason Hayward and Yuli Gurriel.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I talked about this, I think, before the season opener. You want to blow your own mind, go look at the opening day roster from last year and the year before and the year before that. David Dahl was on that team, right? Lots of guys who disappeared and never came back. Who you have on day one is almost never who you have even on June 1st.
Your bench folks. And look, this is the beautiful thing about being a fan, and thank goodness people are, and that's why I get into so much minutia and the Padres Daily and all that stuff. But the theme that you and I preach all the time, it does sort of amuse me that we're getting caught up on these guys when Tatis, Merrill, Machado, Bogarts, Cronenworth, they're driving this bus. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Connor Joe could come up and be the difference in 3 victories, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying it's not important, but the team's 8-2, and I'm getting lots. If you're wondering why I'm kind of like reacting and continuing this conversation, I am getting emails about Yuli Gurriel and Jason Hayward, and that's not to say they're not valid, but it's like, okay, cool. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's not demand that they both be taken out back and disposed of right now.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think it's a testament to the Padres' relevance in the baseball world, to maybe expectations that some fans have, that they're willing to go in on you about the last or second to last guys on the bench, where in years past it didn't matter.
To me, Jason Hayward is the one. And look, I think it'd be great for Jason Hayward to come around, but you're going to give a guy 4 at-bats against most righties. He got to look better than he has.
Right. You got to start hitting. Absolutely. Kevin, you're in Sacramento. We've been told not to call them the Sacramento A's, but they're the A's and they're playing in Sacramento. So you do the math there. This is going to be a weird couple of years for them. They're playing in a minor league park. You can dress it up all you want, but it's a minor league park. They're sharing it with the Sacramento River Cats, correct? It's not even their own minor league park. And they're a franchise that is very much in transition, it seems. Spending some money finally, but, building, I think, for something that might, the next good A's team is going to be playing in Las Vegas. Yeah. What do you make of them so far?
Well, I find it funny. You're right. They are spending money. Gave Brent Rooker a big contract, former Padre Brent Rooker. You might have missed those 6 games in 2022. That's a fascinating story to me. Fascinating. But they're spending money. But I love that, and the media does it. Media is the one that drives the narrative about how the A's are spending their largest contract. Yeah, the guy pitching against the Padres tonight, Luis Severino, got 3 years and $67 million. It's the largest guaranteed contract in A's history. 3 years and $67 million? That's not Will Myers money. Like, I mean, like, come on. Like, yes, they're spending money. Congratulations. And I think that they have the potential to be a pretty decent team. Got some good young players, got a few veterans. It's interesting Severino signed here. Look, I guess the scarcity is creating quite the demand here. I think it's 17,000 or something like that. I guess it's a nice atmosphere. Like I said, balls flying. The Padres clubhouse, I believe, is the River Cats, the AAA team's old clubhouse, kind of refurbished as well. So it meets at least some sort of minimum major league standards. And it's in center field. So I don't know if people know this, but a lot of players will go back and forth to the clubhouse, maybe use a nicer restroom, maybe, pitchers watch TV, watch the game on TV, get treatment. You got to stay in the dugout.
Right.
Go to the dugout now, or else you need to walk through the field in the middle of an inning to get out to the clubhouse. So just a little interesting stuff like that. Artificial turf. So certainly no matter, and it won't get very cold. The original forecast was maybe it was going to be down in the 40s at night, but it's not. Very fortunate to be here this time of year, because I will say, having gone to school up in Northern California, inland Northern California,
for God's sakes, just shout out your college, Kevin. Shout out your school.
Hot in Northern California, it's like Arizona or like Vegas, where it's still 100 degrees at 9:00 at night. And that artificial turf will roast you. So that's going to be interesting. That's another thing. The doomsayers about this thing is, I'm the kind of guy who's like, all right, it's probably going to be a pain in the butt, but gonna be here for 3 days. Let's embrace it. Let's see what's kind of cool about it, right? I guess Sacramento is sort of treating this like a maybe audition. What if Vegas doesn't work out? What if Nashville or Montreal or wherever doesn't work out for an expansion or hey, Sacramento putting its best foot forward here. So, look. It's funny. I guess Mark Kotze, the manager, their media room, the press conference room post game is a tent, like a mini wedding tent outside. So, everything is sort of like that, right? Where it's temporary to some extent, or was just built. It's been a big topic of conversation. Well, I look forward to seeing it.
Yep. As somebody who used to live in a AAA baseball city, there's a lot to like about AAA baseball. It's a lot of fun. If I were a big league ball player and if I had to play half my games, forget Sacramento, right? Hey man, there's Sacramento.
Neat little place to fly into. Yeah.
It's the state capital, man. It's fine. Forget that. If I had to play all of my home games in a AAA ballpark, I think there would be something that felt not very big league about that. And I'm not going to feel too sorry for the Brent Rookers and the Luis Severinos of the world who are making big money to play in a minor league park. But you have to think that it takes some of the specialness out of it, don't you?
You would. And I know that the big priority for the A's this year was to, as Mike Schilt would say, normalize it, embrace it, be some vagabonds, right? And just do what they do the best they can. But certainly it's, for all, you can try to be positive about it, which is all you can do, but you're right. It's kind of lame.
Yep. Kevin, a little bit like when a certain NFL team that used to be here played in Carson, California, probably.
It's not like the Rays, right? Like who, there was a natural disaster that took out their ballpark, right? Like right. This is the making of the A's. And I guess Oakland, but the A's.
The thing that, and it's funny, Kev, if you were born, say, 5 years after me, okay, you would only know the A's as a team that was not very good ever. The A's have some history. And I think when it reminded me so much of the Chargers leaving San Diego. When the A's left Oakland, you look at it and you go, man, some real dudes came through there.
Yeah.
And to see a franchise with that history sharing a stadium with the Sacramento River Cats it will never make sense to me.
By their own, that's the big thing, right? Like circumstances, right? Like if an earthquake had caused the Coliseum to crumble, right?
Sure.
Or whatever. But like this is because they couldn't get it done and Oakland couldn't get it done. And then Vegas is probably going to get done, but not for a couple of years. And hey, they're making the best of it, but yeah, it is kind of lame, man.
Yeah. And what a unique managing challenge for Mark Kotze, who a little bit and longtime Padre. And that must be tough to not only you're in a tough division, sort of with one arm tied behind your back because of your roster, and you're also playing in Sacramento.
Yeah, and he got some better players. He's done a good job. Got himself a nice contract because he would have been snatched up by someone else if he was a free agent after this year.
Sure, absolutely. Hey, let's look at pitching matchups real quick. Tonight, Monday, you've got Michael King going up against Luis Severino.
I'd call that the Aces almost.
Right. Battle of the Aces. Numbers wise, they're kind of similar. 3.62 ERA for King, 3.75 ERA for Severino. King is 1-0. Severino's 0-1. You've got that going Tuesday. It's Dylan Cease against Springs. Jeffrey Springs, a big left-hander, guy who pitched in 7 games a year ago with an ERA of just under 3.5. And then we go to Wednesday afternoon game. Randy Vasquez against Osvaldo Bido, 29-year-old guy. I don't know a ton about him outside of the fact that, right-handed, 6'3", 175. His stats aren't bad, but just
5 innings,
somebody...
2 runs, both of his starts. I believe that was Seattle, and then he won in Colorado on Friday. Springs is supposedly an up-and-comer coming off Tommy John surgery in 2023, so made 7 starts for the Rays last year, and then we've already talked about Severino. I thought both Cease and King looked really good last time, so that's a difference too. The other thing about series is if King and Cease had pitched in Chicago, it would have been different. Maybe it wouldn't have been.
Right.
Maybe it would have been different. But you got your 2 guys going tonight or going the next 2 nights. And so the Padres got to feel good about that. I'll be interested to see how the ballpark plays. Rooker's got 4 homers. They got someone else on their team who has 4 homers. Oh, Tyler Soderstrom has 4. Got a couple guys who have 3. So they've been hitting some bombs. Of course, they played 3 games here and 3 games in Colorado. Now, I think it was like snowing in Colorado for part of the time, so I don't know how the ball was going there. So, but yeah, this will be interesting is the word I have for this series.
Right. Luis Urias, by the way, is a member of the Sacramento A's. How about that?
Spring training. That's right.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, to me, by the way, I'm fascinated still by Randy Vasquez. You and I've probably bothered you with more Randy Vasquez and Eggy Rosario questions over the last year than anybody else. I will be really curious to see how he pitches in that bandbox, especially after really having an uneven start at Wrigley Field last week.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Luis Urias, let's all have that as a lesson. Me included. It was for me. Maybe that's the difference, though. I learned my lessons. Clamoring for Urias to come up. Clamoring. He's a guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's been proved. He's a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Thought he was going to be the future of the franchise along with Tatis. He's a guy.
Right. He had one pretty good year in Milwaukee, and after that, not so much. Was it him for Trent Grisham 1-for-1? Was that the trade?
No. He was a part of. Was that not Davies, Lauer, that big trade there?
Yes, you're right.
So many AJ Preller trades ago. I've lost track, but yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. Kevin, before I let you go, I always try to put you on the spot. You just mentioned stoicism. Tell me about stoicism. And do you try to be stoic?
I really don't know much more, though I do have a brother-in-law who's a philosophy teacher and author. When I say teacher, professor, sorry. And he dumbs it down to be able to speak to me. Very nice guy. We all look at everything. If we could just be aware of the fact that we look at everything with our own biases and then try to start a baseline of, no, let me understand what this side is saying and this side is saying and where you're coming from, rather than I've already made my judgment based on whatever. I don't know much more than that, but that is something that now see, he'll recommend a book to me. I will read a couple chapters in like a year because I have to read them 6 times. But what I have taken out of it is just, hey, let's be aware of what outside influences are causing us to, have these opinions that might not be correct. You might not be seeing the world correctly. Anyway, wow, that was quite a turn you took there, Ryan Finley.
Oh, I made a little note when you mentioned Stoics earlier. I was just like, Stoicism.
You were going to ask me something else, and you said, "Nope, that can wait." We're gonna talk Stoicism.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's in our business. I think we think and we talk about biases all the time, right? I mean, making sure that we acknowledge whichever ones we have before we begin to write. And
we should.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, maybe I'll chase down a book on Stoicism. I'm looking for something non-sportsy to read here during the baseball season. So maybe I'll jump on that.
You'll know more about it than I do in about 10 minutes.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee in Sacramento. Kevin, enjoy Sacramento. For Kevin, I'm Ryan. We'll see you next time.